Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the American College of Rheumatology Town Hall on the American Board of Internal Medicine Longitudinal Knowledge Assessment. Good to have you all with us virtually. I'm Ken Sag from the Division of Clinical Immunology and Rheumatology at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and president of the ACR, and it's my great pleasure to moderate today with Carol Langford. So why the town hall? Why are we doing this now? We've been having discussions with the American Board of Internal Medicine over the last 7 years about maintenance of certification, but there's actually an exciting new development that we wanted to share with you, which is the new Longitudinal Knowledge Assessment. It actually was just released this month. And we're really quite cautiously optimistic that this longitudinal knowledge assessment may address a number of the elements that members have told us are important in the evolution of maintenance of certification. So one of these is developing new approaches to continuing professional development. Another is an alternate to the secure, closed book, high stakes maintenance of certification examination. And with the rollout of the longitudinal knowledge assessment, we've also eliminated the practice assessment, the patient voice, and patient safety components of recertification and maintenance of certification that were not particularly popular. So tonight, we'll have an opportunity to get some questions answered, and we've been really pleased to receive many of those questions already from you in the registration that has accompanied a number of really compelling questions. We'll hear both from rheumatologists who have been leaders within ABIM and also from the ABIM leadership and senior staff who will be present with us tonight. So the way this is going to work is we'll first hear from my co-moderator, Dr. Carol Langford, who will give an abbreviated history of maintenance of certification. Then we'll hear from the ABIM. They'll provide an overview of LK and respond to some of the questions that have already come in. And then we'll have an opportunity to take other questions that you can submit. And you're probably quite familiar by now in using the Q&A component of Ring Central, not the chat section, but the Q&A. You can just type your questions in. I would encourage you first to wait, because a lot of the questions are similar, and wait to type them in and see if they've been answered first. And the other point that I want to make is that a number of the questions we've received are very specific to people's circumstances in recertification. And some of those are going to better be handled with chats with ABIM staff at a later time. So with that as a very brief introduction, it's a great pleasure tonight to introduce our first speaker and the co-moderator, Dr. Carol Langford, a good friend and colleague for many years. Carol is a rheumatologist at the Cleveland Clinic, where she's director of the Center for Vasculitis Care and Research. And since 2003, she's worked very closely with the ACR in advancing our mission of assisting our members in certification through ABIM. And she currently has joined our executive committee as treasurer. So Carol, welcome. I'll stop sharing and let you look at your slides. Carol will have you unmute as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sag, for that kind introduction. And welcome everyone to tonight's town hall. Over the next few minutes, I'm just going to be providing a brief history of maintenance of certification and the efforts that have been taken by the American College of Rheumatology in assisting its members with this process. All right, Will. All right, there we go. So the history of certification really dates back to 1933, when the American Board of Medical Specialties was formed by a group of individuals who had a goal of building a national system of standards and medical specialists. In 1936, the American Board of Internal Medicine became a member board of ABMS. And in 1971, rheumatology became one of 20 subspecialty certificates being offered by ABIM. For initial certification, a physician must complete medical education. They must meet training and licensure requirements and pass a certification examination. In 1990, the process of maintenance of certification began, in which certification became time limited. It was decided for those who had certified prior to 1990, their certification would remain indefinite. But for those who were certified in 1990 and onwards, certification was limited for a 10-year period. To maintain certification meant that a physician was demonstrating that they participate in continuous learning and education activities. In 1990, the initial maintenance of certification required licensure, self-evaluation process modules, and passing a secure proctored examination every 10 years. Now, over the next 23 years, requirements for MOC continued to evolve, and these were developed into 4 unique parts. In January of 2014, the ABIM announced some significant new maintenance of certification requirements, which can be seen in red. This included completing 1 MOC activity every 2 years. There was an increase in point requirement, and there was the introduction of the patient feedback and patient safety modules. Following feedback that was received, the ABIM made some modifications to these requirements. And one of the first areas to be addressed was the attaining of MOC points. In this, there was expanded options that became available, and in particular, activities that physicians were already completing for CME increasingly became eligible for MOC points. In addition, fellows gained points during their training, and there was a possibility of MOC points for taking the 10-year exam. One of the things we'll be hearing tonight is that MOC points will also now be available with the new LKA assessment model. In February of 2015, additional changes were made in which the ABIM suspended the need for the practice assessment, patient feedback, and patient safety modules. Following that time, the focus was on the secure exam at 10 years, which required in-person testing. And it was felt by many that this assessment model did not enable physicians to identify and address their knowledge gaps. In December of 2016, ABIM introduced the 2-year knowledge check-in. And while this was an alternative to the 10-year exam, the perception remained that this was still a high-stakes assessment that provided limited ability to identify and address knowledge gaps. Now, throughout this time, it was recognized that modifications were necessary for continued certification. And approved in just October 29 of 2021, the ABMS approved new standards for continuing certification. These were developed following recommendations from the Vision for the Future Commission. This was an inclusive process with participation of all key stakeholders, which did include the ACR. These new standards are organized into 4 groupings containing 19 standards. Some of the key points was that boards must offer assessment options that have a formative emphasis that assist learning. They should provide personalized instructive feedback that allow physicians to recognize potential knowledge gaps. And boards should collaborate with societies to identify educational resources that diplomats can be directed to. Which really brings us to the role of the American College of Rheumatology. The ACR has had a long-standing commitment to assist members with MOC, including activities to provide MOC points, assessment preparation, and although no longer required, the ACR developed practice improvement modules. After 2014, ACR members increasingly voiced concerns regarding MOC, and the ACR pursued advocacy on their behalf. Throughout this time, the ACR continued to work with ABIM to promote meaningful change. In August of 2019, we were encouraged to hear that ABIM announced plans to develop a longitudinal assessment option, which brings us to today, our town hall meeting to discuss the new longitudinal knowledge assessment for rheumatology. So where does this leave us in terms of MOC requirements? In 2021, there were 2 potential pathways, and in 2022, there remain 2 potential pathways, in which one can continue to gain their MOC points and every 10 years pass a secure proctored examination. But there now is also the opportunity to participate in the LKA, which was launched on January 4th of 2022 for rheumatology and internal medicine. In terms of the ACR's next steps, the ACR will work with ABIM to develop educational tools that enhance the ability of rheumatologists to meet their MOC requirements and augment the potential for learning from the LKA. With the launch of the LKA, rheumatologists will be gaining experience with the use of this new assessment model, and the ACR will be listening. The ACR will continue to communicate with its members and with ABIM regarding MOC and the LKA. Throughout this time and moving into the future, the ACR remains committed to making MOC a meaningful process for rheumatologists so that these efforts may go to allowing them to better serve their patients. And with that, I'll hand this back then to Dr. Sag.
Carol, thanks so much for that great overview, and particularly for your tremendous work with ABIM over many, many years now. It's really great to turn it over now to my colleague Dino Kazi, but before doing that, I want to introduce a couple of people who are with us today from ABIM, some via video and others just by phone. You can see John Held. Raise your hand, John. John is the Director of Communications and Brand Management, and we're also joined by Helen Brooks, who is Director at ABIM of Strategic Alliances. So welcome to you both. And I think on by phone, and if not currently, he will be shortly, is Dr. Rick Battaglia. Rick is a board-certified internist who is the Chief Medical Officer of the ABIM and is responsible for ABIM's efforts to incorporate feedback from practicing physicians and key stakeholders, including groups like ours, into ABIM activities, in particularly maintenance of certification. So Rick, thank you very much for being with us tonight. And it's now my pleasure to hand it over to Dr. Dino Kazi. For those that don't know Dino, Dino is the chair of the ABIM Rheumatology Board and also serves as the Vice Chair of Education and the Director of the Internal Medicine Residency at UT Southwestern. And Dino has been a very active volunteer with the ACR for many years, and we're really delighted, Dino, to have you in this new role with ABIM. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sag and Dr. Langford and all my colleagues at ABIM as well. I'm just thrilled to be a part of this webinar and, you know, very excited about the launch of LKA. I think you're going to find that it's very exciting. It represents a lot of work that has gone into putting this together. We're very grateful for the support and collaboration and friendship of the ACR. Even as it has launched, about over 300 rheumatologists have already enrolled. They were obviously in that group that were due this year. So I think it's had a very good start, and it's had a wonderful start really in a number of specialties with you know, somewhere between 15 to 20,000 people now already participating in this. So to give you more information about this, I want to introduce Florence Mickens, who is the Program Operations Manager and has been with the ABIM since 2009. And she's worked in a variety of areas, including exam administration, accommodations management, community engagement, and MOC program operations. Her broad experience makes her a very solid resource for diplomats and other stakeholders. So Florence, it's over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kazi. I'm hoping that you can hear me. I'm on my phone.
We can hear you
Yes,
fine.
we can hear you well.
Okay. So Helene Brooks is going to drive our slide deck, and I will do the presentation over the phone. Okay, so as we heard a little earlier, the LKA is now launched and is one of two assessment options for internal medicine and rheumatology. This presentation is an overview designed to answer some of the most frequently asked questions about the new longitudinal knowledge assessment. This is, we're showing a little bit of a preview for our ABIM physician portal app, just to make sure that physicians know that's available. It's another way to check your ABIM portal to keep track of your deadlines and your MOC requirements. Next slide, please. As many of you are hopefully already aware, the Longitudinal Knowledge Assessment launched just a few weeks ago. It's an opportunity for diplomats to maintain board certification at a speed that works for them. That's really the driving force behind the new assessment. ABIM here is spotlighting two of our diplomats who have also served on ABIM boards. Next slide, please. Since the first announcement for the LKA in 2019, ABIM undertook a significant physician engagement effort to ensure that physician voices were heard and that their feedback was incorporated so that the finished product will work for physicians. And this slide is just a representation of some of the ways that we reached out to physicians. Next slide, please. You can see that there are 12 disciplines, including rheumatology, which launched this year, with an additional 4 expected to launch in 2023. Any currently certified physicians in the 4 2023 disciplines who had an assessment due in 2021 or 2022 can wait until then to enroll for the longitudinal launch. Next slide, please. Just want to take a moment and go through these dates. As many of you likely know, ABIM's registration and enrollment period each year starts on December 1. So the 2022 assessments opened December 1. January 4th was the day that the 2022 LKA questions became available. You have physicians have the entire quarter to complete the LKA questions. So if you have an assessment that was due in 2021, or 2022, you still have time to come in and enroll in the LKA if you're interested in trying it this year. The enrollment for the LKA will run through June 30th, but it's better to come in the first quarter so you don't miss any questions. Next slide, please. Now we're going to walk through some of the features of the LKA. So you can see that there are I'll highlight some of the differences from our traditional 10-year exam. One of the biggest being that you don't need an appointment. Because the LKA is an assessment that you're doing on your own device, on your own schedule largely, there's no need to schedule an appointment and set aside that time. One question that physicians have been interested in is, how long will I have to do each question? The time limit has been set at 4 minutes. This was set after research by ABIM that included, of course, looking at our own history of providing assessments and participant behavior, in addition to having conversations with multiple boards who've already launched and been running longitudinal assessments. The LKA will provide immediate feedback and rationales and references for most of the questions. Again, that's a significant difference from our traditional point-in-time MOC exam. The LKA has an annual participation requirement. 120 questions will be offered each year. Over the course of the 5 years, participants must open at least 500 of those questions. Physicians are eligible to enroll in the LKA in the year in which their assessment is due. And of course, you can find your assessment due year by logging into your portal and just confirming when you need to have that assessment. You'll have your physicians are able to use any resource they might use in practice, with the exception of discussing questions with another person, a colleague. ABIM diplomates have the opportunity to earn MOC points for each correct answer. And finally, at the end of the 5-year cycle, physicians will receive a pass-fail result for that 5-year period. As I mentioned, ABIM physicians have an opportunity to earn points for the LKA. The points are granted for correct questions. Diplomates who hold multiple certificates have the option to enroll in multiple LKAs as they reach their assessment due year for each of their certificates. You'll earn points for each LKA toward your 5-year 100 MOC point requirement. But note that each LKA is a standalone assessment, so you would have to complete a full set of questions over 5 years to reach the, to complete your LKA for each certificate. I'll also note that although the MOC point requirement and the LKA have 5-year intervals, those dates may not sync up, so you may not be able to completely cover your point requirement with the LKA. It just depends on when your points are due relative to when you start the LKA. Next slide, please. As we noted, the LKA is a 5-year cycle, so questions will be rolled out quarterly. There are 30 questions in each quarter. Participants need to open at least 500 questions over the 5-year period. And of course, we call out here, there's no appointment necessary. You'll receive periodic feedback, including the references and rationales that we noted. An updated score report will be released on a quarterly basis after the first year. And finally, the pass-fail result is available at the end of the 5-year cycle. And once you have your result, if you have passed the assessment, you'll have a choice to make. Either you continue with the LKA and you start the next 5-year cycle, or you can decide that you want to take the traditional MOC exam in the next year. Next slide, please. Here we have a screenshot of the LKA dashboard. There are 4 panels that are designed to provide participants with valuable information, from the high overview of where you are in the 5-year cycle down to understanding how many minutes you have remaining in the 30-minute time bank you receive each year. Participants also have the opportunity to use the support feature or of course to contact ABIM directly if you have questions about the interface, about the exam. Next slide, please. So for eligibility, physicians who are currently certified can enroll and begin the LKA in the year that their assessment is due. So there's no chance to come in early for the LKA, unlike what we have for the traditional MOC exam. For a physician who is currently certified, who comes in their due year, they'll continue to be reported as certified each year, so long as they're meeting the LKA participation requirement for the year. For physicians who were certified before 1990, you can also use the LKA to help you meet your MOC participation requirement. And again, you would begin the LKA in your assessment due year. For a lab certificate, the LKA can be used to meet the assessment requirement, but you should know that you won't have a decision until the 5th year. So you would continue to be reported as not certified for 5 years. And I'll also note that the LKA is not available for a certificate that's in the grace year. So if you have a certificate that's in a grace year, you must pass a traditional 10-year MOC exam by the end of the grace period in order to continue to be reported as certified. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of the MOC program. I think most physicians know full well that they have that assessment due, and they usually know exactly when it's due. But sometimes diplomates may forget about the activity requirement or the MOC points requirement. So we like to remind them that MOC is the assessment, of course, but it's also earning the MOC points. To be reported as certified and participating in MOC, a diplomate has to complete at least one MOC activity every 2 years to be participating in MOC. You have to earn 100 MOC points every 5 years to stay certified and pass an assessment by your assessment due date. Next slide, please. And I just want to talk a little bit about how the new assessment fits into the MOC program. Because it grants points and it's an ongoing assessment that participants will be completing year after year, it will satisfy the need to earn MOC points every 2 years for your participation requirement. And points earned for the LKA will help you to meet the 100 MOC points every 5 years requirement. And of course, a pass on the LKA will meet your assessment requirement. Next slide, please. We have built out a number of in-depth resources about the LKA, and you can find those at our website, abim.org/LKA. If you want to spend a little bit more time to maybe go through the more detailed FAQs, take the tour of the longitudinal to see it in action a little bit, you can visit this website. Next slide, please. And as I noted earlier, if you have questions particular to your own situation and you just want to get a little bit more information, about what your options are, perhaps, I would say first sign into your ABIM physician portal to check out your relevant dates for your requirements. If you have questions about what you see there, please feel free to give us a call. Our customer care team can walk you through your portal and answer questions about the requirements. And finally, you're also welcome to send us an email with your questions. Next slide, please. And that brings me to the end of our presentation. And I think we have time to answer some questions that I suspect.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Florence. That was really very clear, and a lot of questions were answered. We've had a few come in, and I would encourage all of you that still have questions to go ahead and put them into the Q&A queue right now, and we'll answer as many as we can during this live period, and then there'll also be an opportunity for the ABIM staff to answer some of your questions as well offline. So I'll start off, and Dr. Langford and I'll kind of volley back and forth here. There was a question raised about the time bank and wondering whether if you, similar to a traditional closed book exam, if you answer a question quickly and you want a little more time for another one, would the unused time, if you don't spend 4 minutes on a question, would that be credited to you for future use?
No, there's no opportunity to add to the time bank. So each question has 4 minutes. Once that question is closed, any unused time evaporates with that question, right? Expires with that question.
Thank you.
So one of the more immediate groups of individuals would seem to be those who are coming up for doing their assessment this year of 2022. And the questions, as I understand, are brought up each quarter, and then they expire at the end of that quarter.
Yes.
And so, you know, some people may be thinking, well, I had taken my 10-year exam in the fall, I'll just join at that period of time. But if that's the case, again, if I'm correct, by the summer, 60 questions will have then expired, and those would count towards the 100 that you're allowed to not complete. Is that correct?
So yes, the questions roll out quarterly, and physicians are able to come in up until June 30th of a given calendar year. So once the first 2 quarters have closed, you would not be able to enroll for that year. And we do try to strongly recommend that if you're thinking of doing the LKA, that you come in as early as possible in your due year. And note that I think you said if someone took a fall traditional MOC exam, that maybe they would come in for the LKA the next year. Is that what you were saying? Is that what you said?
Well, I was thinking they may be thinking that, oh, that's when I would sign up for the LKA. But your point is that even if they took it in the fall, they should sign up at the very beginning of that year.
Well, so if you take a traditional MOC exam in the fall and you haven't received your result, right? Because if you pass an MOC exam in the fall, you would then have a new assessment due date, so you wouldn't be due that year, right? Because you would be due 10 years from when you passed. If you take an MOC exam in the fall and you're waiting for your result, you should not sign up for the LKA in December unless you have received an unsuccessful result.
Yeah, there's a couple questions that have come in that have to do with people that are just now learning about this, and some have even registered to take the traditional closed book exam. Is it possible to switch over to the LKA and to get a credit?
Yes. If you were thinking that you might want to take the traditional MOC exam this year and you're due this year, you do have time to cancel that appointment and instead enroll in the LKA. But you would only have access to the LKA after you've canceled your appointment.
And they would get a refund then, or get a credit?
I believe they would get a credit. If that's
Credit.
incorrect, hopefully one of the ABIM folks will jump on and correct me.
So there are a number of questions about the issue of passing. And again, I think you mentioned the determination of passing is made at the end of the 5 years. Will there be something on the portal as far as to provide them with information to show them as far as where they're doing, as far as, again, if they have a high rate of questions correct, or if there are some concerns as far as
yes,
the number they're not getting correct?
Yes, they will be getting feedback quarterly to show them how they're doing. They won't have a full score, of course, but you'll know which questions you're getting right. You'll know the number of questions you're getting right and wrong.
Great. So just to be, there's a question that's come in about the points you need for maintenance of certification and the exam. And the way I understand it, and just want to make sure I have it right, is that by doing the LKA, you do both. You both do the exam, and you also, if you do the requisite number of questions, get enough MOC to check that box as well. Is that correct?
So yes, the LKA grants MOC points. It grants 0.2 points for each correct answer. And so over the course, so you could, and you're doing 120 questions a year, so you could earn about 24 points a year, but you'd have to get them all correct, right? So you can earn a number of points each year. However, one of the things to think about is you need to know when your 5-year MOC points are due. So for example, if you were certified before 2014, your first 5-year was in 2018, your next 5-year is in 2023. If you start the LKA in 2022, you're definitely not going to earn 100 points by the end of 2023. So the LKA will contribute to meeting your 100-point requirement, but it may not sync up in time in order for you to exclusively do the LKA to meet your point requirement, if that makes sense.
I think that's helpful, yeah. Carol?
So there are some questions about, opening a question. So once a person clicks on a question and sees it, they have to answer it. As far as, again, if they choose not to answer it, it will be marked as incorrect, and it will not go to their 100 that they can skip. Is that correct?
Correct. If you open the question, it's not considered skipped, so it wouldn't count against those 100 that you can leave unopened, of course, because that's what we're looking at, opened versus unopened. If you open a question and don't answer it for some reason, there's no way for it to be marked correct, so yes, it would be marked incorrect.
So a follow-up to that is and I think I know the answer here, but I'll communicate the question, and that is, do you have any idea what sort of percent pass you'll need to get, what kind of percent correct you'll need to get to end up with the passing score? I'm assuming that in the first year of this, it's going to be hard to figure that, but any sense, and how will it compare, for example, with the closed book?
I don't have a figure that I can give you. And we don't have anyone from our psychometrics team on the line who might be better positioned to give you information. But ABIM does have a process for determining its score. That process includes physicians who come in and work with ABIM's psychometrics team to set these passing scores for each of our assessments. There's quite a bit of information about that process on our website if someone wants to get in the weeds about exactly how we do that. So the information is available. I'm just not well versed in it, unfortunately.
So some people had chosen to try the 2-year knowledge check-in. How would they transition as far as to the LKA?
So no matter what your most recent assessment might be, the LKA eligibility is driven by your assessment due date. So if you took an LKA if you passed the KCI in 2018, you're due again in 2022, right? If you have taken if you took a 10-year you passed the 10-year in 2015, you're due in 2025, and that's the year that you would be looking to start the LKA. It's always going to be driven, enrollment is always going to be driven by when your assessment is due.
Is it possible to benchmark how you're doing against other people that are completing this, particularly since it's a relatively new tool, and you know, have some sense of whether you're working hard enough or studying hard enough?
Right. The preview I've seen of the score report in design anticipates that, yes, you will have that kind of information. Just as we have on our score report for our traditional, where you can sort of see where you are relative to the group that took the assessment, there will be something, I believe there will be something comparable on the ongoing score report that you'll see for the LKA.
Great, thank you.
So I think there's a little bit as far as confusion about MOC points and the LKA. So the LKA is an option to the 10-year secure exam, correct? And then both groups also need to complete the required MOC points.
Yes, so the MOC program is looking at your assessment, whether or not you have completed your 100 MOC points by the due date, and in terms of whether or not you're participating in MOC on an ongoing basis. Every 2 years, we're looking to see if you've completed an activity. There is only one bucket of points per diplomate, so whether you're doing only 10-year exams, which carry 20 points for each attempt, or you're doing only the LKA, which will allow you to earn points for correct answers, or a mix of the two, which is a possibility, right? You could do LKA for your internal medicine and decide you'll do a traditional 10-year for your rheumatology, let's say. So you have to earn 100 points by your due date as set out in your physician portal. And all of the activities you do, including taking assessments, are counting toward those points. And of course, we have the partnership with ACCME, which allows physicians to earn ABIM MOC points through thousands of different CME activities.
Question about what happens after 5 years if you don't meet the performance standard on the LKA, and you did that instead of the closed book exam. What would happen then?
So just as would happen with a point in time assessment, assuming your other requirements are up to date, you would be put into a grace period for the next calendar year. So during that year, you would need to pass the traditional 10-year MOC exam.
Could you provide just a little bit more as far as, again, some of our colleagues do want to maintain certification in both internal medicine and rheumatology, and how would those pathways be able to be done together?
Right. So you do have the opportunity you are making a choice of assessment for each certificate. You're not required to do all traditional MOC or all LKA. You can mix and match. If you choose to do LKA for multiple certificate types, you would have to complete a full LKA for each certificate. So that is, if you happen to come in 2022 for internal medicine, you would have 120 questions due in 22. If in 2023 you begin the LKA for rheumatology, you would have 120 questions for IM and an additional 120 for rheumatology.
So people are asking about when you would say your certificate expires. With the traditional closed book exam, it would expire after the grace period. But what if you do the LKA? Do you say it expires 5 years after it would be normally up? Do you have a 5-year grace period?
So ABIM has began moving away from the 10-year certificate in 2013. So what we have now is we issue certificates that do not have an end date on them. So your certificate is valid so long as you're meeting all of your MOC requirements. So if you come in and you complete and you're completing each of the 5 years you need for the LKA, each year your assessment due date is being pushed out by 1 year. So each year earns you a year. And when you get to the 5th year, that also earns you another year. And in that year, you're making a choice whether that year you continue with the LKA or you move away and you make the choice to do the traditional MOC exam by the end of the year instead.
Thank you.
If your certification lapses and so you initiate the LKA, will it say on your portal at that point that you're meeting certification or not until the end of the 5 years?
It will, you won't be meeting the assessment until you have completed and passed the assessment. So your certification status would not change until the end of the 5 years, because we wouldn't know whether or not you had passed until the end of the 5 years.
So again, a follow-up as far as if a colleague was in a hospital system where certification was required, their best option in that setting would be to do the secure 10-year exam, which would be a more immediate option to potentially pass.
Yes, if I would say for someone who needs the quickest path to reinstating a lapsed certificate, the 10-year exam would definitely be a better option for them.
What is ABIM and ACR? What are we recommending or providing for preparing for this? I guess part of that, it comes back, Carol, to you and I, and Dino may want to jump in too. Certainly I think the annual meeting, the courses that are available now, so many things are available virtually. The review course, certainly. What other things, Carol and Dino, would you say the ACR is doing to help people prepare for this?
So the ACR continues to offer the CARE module, which is again a question-based system as far as where you have questions. Again, they are not time focused as far as you can have as much time to answer. You will get references as far as about after you complete those, and educational materials are also built around those within the meeting. So the CARE module is a nice opportunity.
And does
I really think,
go ahead, Dino.
I think what the ACR has put out, all its post-meeting, ability to sign on and do things at your own pace. I must say the ACR has put out continuous education. And so even though the meetings are once a year, I think the offerings are year-round. And I think that's really consistent with this whole idea of longitudinal knowledge.
Yeah, well, we have the annual meeting is once a year, but there's lots of other meetings. There's state of the art. The winter rheumatology just concluded, and I got a really nice email from someone saying that they think that's the best educational venue that we do. So there's a lot of different opportunities to get content, didactic content through different things that we do. What is ABIM thinking the study strategy is? Is it the same as somebody would do in preparing for the closed book exam and doing this more open book approach?
ABIM generally does not make any recommendations of particular strategies or activities that a physician might do, because we don't promote any particular activities. I will say we always recommend that physicians come in and take advantage of the tutorials and other information that we have on our website, because it's useful to have an idea of what the process will look like for the assessment before you start the assessment.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sag, it's
yeah, go ahead.
It's Helene. I just wanted to jump in that you know, our hope is that this really is sort of we consider walking around knowledge, that, you know, as you're taking these items and you have 4 minutes to answer them, you have the ability to use other resources, but this is not something where you should be doing cramming or a lot of extensive studying, that you're going to be getting feedback over time. You're going to know the areas in which you're doing well and the areas in which you're not, based on the feedback that we're giving you. And if you find that you're weak in some areas, you'll have that ability to continue to learn over that 5-year period. That's really our hope here.
So that actually is
I just wanted to call that out.
That's great. And it's a good segue to a question that just came in about whether you should open all the questions or whether you can, you know, leave some not open. And I wonder if there's been a discussion about labeling a question. So in other words, if somebody does a lot of lupus, that's sort of their special area of interest, they may want to, you know, answer all the lupus questions, but maybe they're less facile and vasculitis. Would there ever be an opportunity to have just an idea of what the topic is and to be able to selectively open questions to get to the 500, but maybe with a little more of a pathway towards things that they do in practice?
No.
At this point, I was going to say, Florence, I know at this point we don't have that. I don't know if we will at some point, but there is no sort of designation that you know you're going to be answering, to your example, a lupus question. So those 100 unanswered that Florence went over, really it's sort of you saying it's what we consider life happens. So it's you sort of saying, you know what, I'm really crazy this quarter. I just do not have time to answer these questions, or this week's a bear for me. At the end of the quarter, I thought I was going to have time and I don't. I'm going to not answer these last 10. But it's not one where you get to sort of choose the knowledge base and answer that way, if that makes sense. I can't tell you what we might do in the future, but as of right now, it really is meant to be sort of this is the next question that you're answering, and it may be on something that you're either super familiar with or perhaps not as familiar with.
Great. Carol.
So I think we've clearly seen that MOC has been an evolving process. And what are the ABIM's thoughts as far as at what point are they going to assess, you know, the LKA as far as seeing what things have succeeded, what things could maybe we make some modifications to as far as, you know, how the ongoing assessment will be planned?
Well, the feedback gathering will be ongoing. It's already started, right? We have physicians who are in there. We have, I think, over 1,000 physicians who've actually completed the first quarter's questions. So we're already talking with physicians. We're already gathering feedback. And of course, we'll continue to do that. And the goal is to be responsive to what we're hearing.
Wonderful.
It's a little too early.
That's great.
Right, it's a little too early.
There's a question about people that have certificates that don't expire. How would LKA affect their recertification?
So I think we're talking about for physicians who have certificates issued before 1990. In that case, those physicians do have a participation requirement, just as other certified physicians have. And so when they're coming in and meeting requirements, it's to earn that participation designation.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, it
but
looks
they
to me,
can
Carol, like
participate.
a lot of the questions have been answered. Is there one or two others that you see that you want to focus us in on in the last minute or two here?
No, I mean, I don't think anything specific I see.
Okay, well, I think we've pretty close to reach the end of our hour, and I want to first of all thank very much all of the participants in this town hall, and particularly thank our colleagues at ABIM. And we really get the sense through this sort of format that you're here to help us, and this recertification and maintenance of certification is something that we are expected to do. It's something that our institutions, that our payers, that so many people want us to do to demonstrate that we're keeping up. And so we're looking for new ways to do this. And I will say I have a vested interest in this, since I'm actually enrolled in this now for my third recertification. And so I'm kind of excited about it. It sounds like a kind of a novel way to go. But I want to let everybody know that this is being recorded, and it's going to be available on the ACR website. I would encourage you please to complete a survey and to provide any other questions you might have. And we'll continue to offer these town halls as a way to provide rapid information on hot topics. So I want to thank again Dr. Langford for co-moderating, Dr. Kazi is our chair of the rheumatology board within ABIM, and all of the ABIM participants tonight. And thank you, and wish you well, and please stay safe and healthy. Take care now. Goodbye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.